Bashar al-Assad, who had been the leader of Syria for 24 years, was finally forced to flee the country with his entire family in early December 2024. They sought refuge abroad, but this is not the only major issue they face. Bashar's wife, who was born in the UK, is seriously ill with leukemia, and her condition is worsening. The video will explore the truth about her life after the fall of the Assad regime, including what life in exile is like for her and how she is dealing with her illness. Bashar al-Assad, the leader of the regime, was forced to flee Syria with his family, leaving everything behind in a dramatic and desperate escape. They managed to disappear using underground tunnels to avoid capture during his troubled years in power. Asma al-Assad, his wife, remained by his side throughout this time. Asma was more than just the mother of their 3 children. She played a significant role in managing Syria's economy and protecting the regime's hidden wealth. At first, Asma was seen as a symbol of beauty and hope for the people, with the media comparing her to Princess Diana and calling her the Rose of the Desert. Born and raised in the United Kingdom to a respected Syrian doctor, Asma had once lived a normal life and even worked in a bank. Asma al-Assad, formerly known as Asma Fawaz Akras, was born into a peaceful London neighborhood far from the turmoil of the Middle East. However, her marriage to Bashar al-Assad propelled her into a realm of power, secrecy, and controversy as the regime's violent actions gained global attention. The public's perception of Asma transformed, with the once admired Rose of the Desert now being viewed in a negative light, likened to the infamous Lady Macbeth and the First Lady of Hell, a woman entangled in her husband's brutal rule. This fascinating life story explores how a seemingly ordinary young woman from a quiet background became the wife of one of the world's most feared dictators. Asma was raised in Acton, a vibrant neighborhood in West London, in a family that skillfully combined Syrian traditions with a Western way of life. She experienced a unique blend of cultures, as her father, Dr. Fakas, was a respected cardiologist, and her mother, Sahar Fakas, worked as a diplomat at the Syrian embassy in London. Despite their strong Syrian roots, the family embraced a lifestyle that seamlessly fit into British society. Asma's education reflected her family's ambition and high standards. She began at Twyford Church of England High School, a lively and diverse environment where she first demonstrated her academic talents. She later attended Queen College in Marylebone, an elite institution, where she further excelled as a determined and high-achieving student. Her dedication paid off in 1996 when she graduated with a first-class degree in computer science and French literature from King's College London. After university, Asma entered the competitive world of investment banking, starting her career at Deutsche Bank before moving to JP Morgan. Asma, often called Emma by her colleagues and friends, had quickly built a reputation for herself during this time, symbolizing her seamless integration into British culture. A family friend once described her as very English, noting that she seemed more focused on her career and Western lifestyle than on the politics or cult culture of the Middle East. Asma's early life portrayed a young woman with a promising future in finance, seemingly distant from her Syrian heritage. However, this ambitious banker thriving in London's corporate world would eventually find herself at the center of one of the most contentious regimes in modern history. Her life took an unexpected turn in the late 1990s when her mother, Sahar, encouraged her to reconnect with Bashar al-Assad, a young ophthalmology student living in London. They had known each other as children through mutual friends in Syria. Bashar relocated to London in 1992 to train as an eye doctor, seeking a peaceful life away from the political turmoil in Syria. Asma, on the other hand, was focused on her successful career in investment banking and had a bright future ahead of her. However, Asma found herself increasingly drawn to Bashar, a quiet yet determined man. Their paths crossed occasionally during family trips to Syria, and their relationship grew stronger when they both found themselves in London. At this point, Bashar was far removed from the image of a future president. He was a soft-spoken man, passionate about medicine, and seemed more interested in his studies than his father's legacy. Bashar's father, Hafez al-Assad, had ruled Syria with an iron fist since 1971. However, fate took an unexpected turn in 1994 when Bashar's older brother, Basil, who had been groomed to take over as Syria's leader, tragically died in a car accident. This sudden loss thrust Bashar into a role he had never expected or prepared for, forcing him to return to Syria and leave behind his medical medical ambitions. Bashar quickly joined an intensive military training program after the relatively peaceful life in London. He advanced rapidly, rising from captain to colonel in just 3 years. When his father Hafez al-Assad passed away in June 2000, Bashar was prepared to take over the leadership of the country. In a widely criticized election, he became president with an overwhelming 97% of the vote, continuing the Assad family's rule. Meanwhile, Asma had a promising future at JP Morgan and was about to start an MBA program at Harvard, but her deepening connection with Bashar changed everything. When asked why she gave up her prestigious career, Asma famously said, "Who would choose Harvard over love?" In 2000, just a month before their wedding, Asma resigned from her position at JP Morgan, shocking her colleagues, especially since it came shortly after closing a major deal and just 2 months before receiving a substantial bonus. Asma reflected on the moment, saying she just wanted to leave because she had had enough. Asma and Bashar's surprise wedding in December 2000 was kept secret, with no prior public reports of their relationship. Their marriage was seen as a symbol of unity and progress in Syria, as Asma was a Sunni Muslim from a Western background, while Bashar came from the minority Alawite sect. However, Asma's experience as Syria's first lady did not start with extravagant events. Instead, she chose to travel across rural Syria in simple clothes, meeting ordinary Syrians before the world met her. Over the next few months, she visited 100 villages in 13 of Syria's 14 regions, hearing about the difficulties people were facing and thinking about how she could make a positive impact. Asma's early work as First Lady focused on initiatives to improve education, create economic opportunities, and support rural development. She founded the Syria Trust for Development, a network of charities working under the government, which gained international attention. Before the Syrian civil war in 2011, Asma was celebrated as a symbol of female empowerment in the Middle East, with the media hailing her as a progressive and modernizing figure. However, this positive image was quickly overshadowed as the country descended into civil war later that year. Bashar al-Assad's regime carried out brutal actions, shattering the perception of progress and reform. As reports of violence and repression spread, critics questioned the earlier Vogue article, accusing the magazine of being part of a PR campaign for a regime now terrorizing its people. By June 2012, Vogue editor Anna Wintour publicly distanced herself from the piece, acknowledging that the magazine had been overly optimistic about the Assad regime at the time of publication, but the war had since revealed its true nature. Asma's early years as First Lady were filled with hope and the illusion of positive change, but the harsh reality of her husband's violent regime soon overshadowed everything. Despite her efforts to project an image of reform, the promise of a new Syria faded, and Asma's role became far more controversial than anyone could have imagined on her wedding day. The al-Assad family initially seemed like an ideal and incredibly loving family. Asma and Bashar al-Assad are the proud parents of 3 children. Their firstborn son Haz was born in 2001 and named after Bashar's father, Hz al-Assad, following a family tradition of honoring their patriarch. 2 years later, in 2003, they welcomed a daughter named Zeed, and in 2004, their youngest son Kareem was born. The couple often presented themselves as a close-knit family in the public eye, with Asma frequently highlighting her role as a devoted mother, while Bashar was portrayed as a serious, authoritative leader. Asma worked hard to maintain a gentle, caring image, often appearing with their children in carefully staged family photos. In January 2013, during a tumultuous period in Syria, Bashar mentioned in an interview that Asma was pregnant, sparking rumors and speculation that the couple might be expecting a 4th child. The lack of official announcements or confirmed reports about another child joining their family did not stop the chaos and political tensions surrounding Asma and her family. Despite the constant global attention and scrutiny, they have emphasized the importance of focusing on their roles as parents and shielding their children. However, the image of the perfect family was shattered in 2011 when protests against the Syrian government began. What started as a call for change quickly turned into a brutal and ongoing war, causing immense suffering and destruction. This violence led to a significant change in the way the world perceived both Bashar al-Assad and his wife, Asma, who was once seen as a modern and progressive First Lady. The First Lady of Hell, as she was ominously known, was accused of being directly involved in the regime's horrific crimes against the Syrian people. This led the international community to question Asma al-Assad's true role and influence within the government. Many around the world wondered if she could potentially use her position and proximity to power to intervene and stop the escalating violence. In 2012, as the brutal crackdown on anti-government protesters continued, the wives of the British and German ambassadors to the United Nations made a public and impassioned appeal directly to Asma. They urgently pleaded with her to speak out against the regime's actions and call for an end to the bloodshed ravaging Syria. The ambassadors' wives reminded Asma that she could no longer hide behind or be shielded by her husband Bashar al-Assad's decisions as the head of state. However, despite this direct challenge, Asma remained stubbornly silent, unwilling to condemn the government's harsh tactics. Over time, as the conflict dragged on and the scale of the regime's brutality became increasingly clear, it became painfully obvious that Asma was not just a passive observer, but an active supporter of the government's actions. Experts believe that Asma had become intoxicated by the immense power and wealth that came with her position as First Lady, and that the couple's attachment to maintaining their grip on power seemed to outweigh any moral objections they may have had to the immense suffering inflicted on the Syrian people. In 2012, the Guardian newspaper published a series of leaked emails from Asma and Bashar's private accounts, which further confirmed Asma's direct involvement in and endorsement of the regime's violent crackdown. This provided damning evidence that she was complicit in the government's crimes, even as the Syrian population continued to endure unimaginable hardship and loss of life. Asma's public silence and private actions painted a disturbing portrait of a first lady who had fully embraced the dark powers of her position, to the eternal detriment of the nation she was meant to serve. Despite facing the hardships of bombings, hunger, and displacement, Asma was spending significant sums on expensive jewelry, designer clothes, and lavish home decor. This extravagant lifestyle stood in stark contrast to the struggles experienced by ordinary Syrians. The emails revealed the close, almost personal relationship between Asma and Bashar al-Assad. In one email, Asma wrote, "If we are strong together, we will overcome this together. I love you." These intimate messages spread widely across Syria, causing outrage and a deep sense of betrayal among the people. At a time when the ordinary citizens were facing unimaginable hardships and devastation due to the ongoing civil war, the emails portrayed the Assads as being more concerned about their personal relationship rather than the plight of their own people. Concurrently, social media posts further fueled the public's anger by showing members of Syria's elite, including those with close ties to the Assads, attending lavish parties and indulging in extravagant lifestyles, while the majority of the population struggled to find basic necessities and survive the horrors of the war. These images of the ruling class living in opulence only served to highlight the stark divide between the haves and the have-nots. As the conflict continued to rage on, Asma's public image underwent a dramatic transformation. Once celebrated as a caring and forward-thinking First Lady who championed social welfare and education initiatives, she now became seen by many as being complicit in one of the most devastating wars of the 21st century. Her silence and perceived enjoyment of luxury during such a dark and turbulent time severely damaged her reputation. Instead of being remembered as a reformer and a champion of the people, she was now viewed by a significant portion of the population as someone who had accepted and even perpetuated the corrupt and violent legacy of the Assad regime. When opposing forces recently took control of the capital city of Damascus, Bashar al-Assad, Syria's struggling and embattled leader, made a hasty escape. His private plane reportedly flew under the radar with its transponder switched off, first landing at a Russian airbase near the coastal city of Latakia. This clandestine departure was yet another indication of the Assad regime's desperation and its inability to maintain its grip on power in the face of the ongoing uprising and conflict. According to the sources, President Bashar al-Assad's wife Asma and their 3 children were reportedly waiting for him in Moscow, as Russia, a long-standing and staunch ally of Assad throughout the course of the protracted Syrian civil war, is widely believed to have worked discreetly with several neighboring countries to help facilitate his safe exit from the country using a Russian government aircraft. However, a message supposedly issued directly from Assad himself claimed that he had in fact gone to a key military airbase located outside the capital Damascus to personally oversee and coordinate the country's defenses, and was only evacuated from the site after it had been surrounded by advancing rebel forces, thus denying any pre-planned intention to seek sanctuary or step down from power. This dramatic and clandestine escape from Syria is said to have marked the abrupt and unceremonious end of the Assad family's firm grip on power, which had been firmly entrenched in the 2080s country since 1971. The flight to exile in Russia has now ushered in a new, uncertain chapter for the Assad clan clan as they seek to regroup and potentially plan their eventual return to Syria. Despite these developments, the Kremlin spokesperson adamantly refused to either confirm or deny Assad's current location, or whether he would ultimately be granted formal political asylum in Russia. The spokesperson noted that such a consequential decision regarding the status of a foreign head of state cannot be unilaterally made without extensive consultations with all relevant parties. This guardedness from the Russian government has only fueled further speculation and uncertainty surrounding Assad's immediate future and the broader implications for the ongoing Syrian conflict. Bashar al-Assad, the embattled president of Syria, along with his immediate family members, reportedly traveled to Moscow, Russia, in a bid to seek refuge and protection from the ongoing turmoil in his country. The entourage accompanying Assad included a team of translators, drivers, and a significant contingent of security personnel, all tasked with ensuring the safety and smooth transit of the Syrian leader and his family. It is believed that other members of Assad's extended family, including his wife's parents, who were previously residing in London, have also joined the exodus to the Russian capital. This family relocation suggests a coordinated effort to consolidate the Assad clan in a perceived safe haven. Interestingly, several of Assad's family members had already made substantial investments in the Russian real estate market, reportedly purchasing at least 18 luxury apartments in a prestigious Moscow complex as early as 2019. This foresight in securing property within the Russian sphere of influence could indicate a long-standing contingency plan in the event of a crisis. However, despite these previous lavish investments, recent reports suggest that the Assad family is now living in more low-profile conditions, perhaps in a heavily guarded private estate away from the public eye. This shift in living arrangements may be a strategic move to avoid unwanted attention and maintain a discreet presence within the Russian capital. The relationship between Russia and Syria has been long-standing, with Moscow serving as a steadfast ally and supporter of the Assad regime. However, even with this deep-seated alliance, Russian President Vladimir Putin has maintained a certain distance from Bashar al-Assad, perhaps wary of the international scrutiny and sanctions that could be directed toward the Kremlin for harboring the embattled Syrian leader. While Russia has strengthened its ties with the new leadership in Syria, Assad himself has been largely kept out of the spotlight, with the Russian government seemingly preferring to work through other Syrian power brokers rather than directly engaging with the controversial president. According to Mark Galati, an expert on Russian security, Bashar al-Assad has now joined the ranks of other deposed dictators who have sought refuge in Russia, further solidifying the country's reputation as a sanctuary for leaders facing existential challenges to their rule. The elaborate relocation of the Assad family to Moscow underscores the precarious position of the Syrian president and the considerable resources he is willing to deploy to ensure his own survival, even at the cost of distancing himself from the public eye and the international community. The Assad family, once the ruling dynasty of Syria, now finds itself at the mercy of the Kremlin and its leader, Vladimir Putin. The tumultuous events of the Syrian civil war have left the Assads in a precarious position, where they must dance to the tune of the Russian government to ensure their survival, while the international community continues to demand that Bashar al-Assad face justice for the war crimes committed under his regime. The reality is that he is unlikely to be extradited back to Syria, where he would likely face severe legal consequences. However, his value as a potential bargaining chip has not diminished in the eyes of the Kremlin. The ongoing conflict in Syria has had far-reaching implications, not only for the country itself, but also for the powerful Assad family that has ruled the nation for decades. According to experts, the Assad clan, including the current president Bashar al-Assad and his close relatives, have sought refuge in Russia, where they are currently in hiding under the strict surveillance and control of the Russian intelligence services. This arrangement, orchestrated by the Kremlin, provides the Assads with a degree of protection from the consequences of their actions during the Syrian civil war. However, this safe haven comes at a price, as the family must strictly adhere to the Kremlin's interests and instructions, lest they risk losing their place of sanctuary. The Russian government has a vested interest in maintaining the Assads' loyalty, as their continued influence and access to information can be valuable assets in the complex geopolitical landscape of the region. Despite their diminished political power and influence within Syria, reports indicate that the Assads have been able to amass substantial hidden wealth over the years, estimated to be around $2 billion. This wealth is believed to be carefully concealed in a web of offshore accounts, real estate investments, and intricate shell companies, allowing the family to maintain a certain level of financial security even as they have lost their grip on the reins of power in their homeland. The Assad's ability to safeguard their wealth, even in the face of upheaval and conflict, is a testament to their sophisticated financial maneuvering and the extensive resources at their disposal. This hidden wealth serves as a buffer, providing the family with a degree of financial stability and independence, even as they find themselves in a precarious political situation, relying on the protection and goodwill of the Russian government. The ongoing saga of the Assad family's exile and the preservation of their wealth offers a complex and multifaceted narrative, highlighting the interplay between power, politics, and personal enrichment in the volatile landscape of the Middle East. As the conflict in Syria continues to unfold, the fate of the Assads and their hidden assets remains a closely watched and intriguing aspect of the broader geopolitical drama. The Assad's hidden wealth has long been a source of intrigue and speculation within the international community, as the world grapples with the enduring legacy of their ruthless rule and the horrific atrocities committed under their watch. While their current living conditions may be a far cry from the lavish palaces and extravagant privileges they once enjoyed, the Assad's substantial financial resources could potentially allow them to continue living comfortably, if not reclaim a semblance of their former dominance, as long as they remain compliant with the Kremlin's strategic demands. Estimates suggest that the Assad family has amassed a vast personal fortune, estimated to be in the billions of dollars, through a complex web of offshore accounts, shell companies, and opaque business dealings that have enabled them to shield their wealth from international scrutiny and sanctions. This hidden wealth is believed to have been accumulated through the systematic plundering of state resources, the exploitation of lucrative monopolies, and the diversion of funds from humanitarian aid and reconstruction efforts during the Syrian civil war. As the world watches the unfolding of the protracted Syrian crisis, the fate of the Assad family remains a deeply complex and uncertain one, intimately intertwined with the geopolitical interests and machinations of Russia, a key ally and patron of the regime. The Kremlin's unwavering support for the Assads, both politically and financially, has been a crucial factor in their ability to cling to power, despite the widespread international condemnation and calls for accountability for the widespread human rights abuses and war crimes committed under their rule. Meanwhile, the ongoing efforts to bring justice to the victims of the Syrian conflict through international tribunals and investigative mechanisms have faced significant challenges and obstacles, as the Assads and their associates have employed a range of strategies to evade responsibility and shield their wealth from potential seizure and restitution. The complex web of financial and political connections that the Assads have cultivated, both within and beyond Syria's borders, has made the task of unraveling their hidden assets and ensuring that they are held accountable for their crimes an arduous and painstaking process. As the world continues to grapple with the consequences of the Assad regime's brutality, the question of how to address the family's vast financial resources and their potential to undermine efforts towards peace and reconciliation in Syria remains a critical and unresolved issue on the international agenda. Please share your ideas with us in the comments section and remember to like and subscribe.